Good Thursday, everyone. I'm meteorologist Addison Green, and we are diving into the tropics, where we are now talking about Tropical Storm Grace. It is no longer a hurricane since it made landfall earlier on this morning in the Yucatan Peninsula, and also Tropical Storm Andre that's on the verge of becoming a hurricane as it may pose a threat for portions of the Northeast. And as we look through the Atlantic Basin names so far for this year, we've crossed off many of those names, and we are already, of course, right on the H-named storm of Andre, and thankfully we don't see any tropical waves coming in off the African continent to check off maybe the I or J name storm. So we may be in a little bit of a lull over the next week or so. But of course, as we make our way into the heart of the Atlantic tropic basin season, that's late August in through mid-September. That's when we can certainly see tropical waves pop up left and right. And then unfortunately, we get the chance for seeing depression storms and then maybe even hurricanes form from them. But typically speaking, going through your tropical Atlantic climatological data right here, this is coming in from the National Hurricane Center from 1966 to 2009. So this is an average of when we typically do see these named storms pop on up. We get our 6th named storm popping on up September 8th, 7th named storm, a little bit more than a week away, September 16th. But we've already crossed off several of those names on that list so far this year. So much like last year, we are running ahead of schedule. Now, Fred, it did make its way up across into portions of Florida when it made landfall last week and then made its way up the eastern seaboard, and it has become a remnant low, so it no longer has those tropical characteristics, but all that moisture is still associated with the system, and now it's getting spread out across sections of the Northeast. And you can see that counterclockwise swirl going on in the atmosphere around that general area of circulation that used to be the center of the storm of Fred. And we can see those scattered rain bands coming on in across portions of upstate New York from Syracuse going through the Finger Lakes in towards Binghamton, and also a big plume of tropical moisture getting wrung out across sections of New England. The system, as it slowly makes its way out of the region, will be causing the potential for flooding concerns, and already it has caused the concerns for some tornadic activity. We did see overnight several tornado warnings being issued up across sections of the New York City tri-state area, and there were tornado watches all along its journey as the system was making its way up the East Coast. So I'm sure a lot of people will be glad to see this system finally check on out of the picture. But as we make our way from the Northeast briefly, we have the remnants of Fred, and of course we're keeping our eyes on Grace and Andre as we watch both of those systems starting to make their way to a west-northwest direction over across portions of the Caribbean Sea, through the Gulf of Mexico, as well as the Atlantic Ocean right there. Let's dive into Grace, which did make landfall as a hurricane just south of Cozumel, Playa del Carmen, up across the areas through the early morning hours between 4 to 5 o'clock Central Time. And as it's making its way westward, it weakened, of course, as it moved on and over that landmass right there. As soon as these tropical systems started to engage with any friction from any land masses, have some wind shear up aloft, or run into cooler waters, they start to weaken. In this case, moving over land will certainly weaken a tropical system, but it's still moving at a pretty quick clip at 18 miles per hour. But we still have tropical storm warnings all around the coastal waters right there across the Yucatan Peninsula. Where does it go next? Well, it would be making its way back into the open waters of the southwest Gulf of Mexico in the Bay of Campeche, and then get the chance for strengthening, now moving back over those tropical waters. Wind speeds go up to 75 miles per hour by Friday morning, and then possibly up to 85 miles per hour or so as we see a secondary landfall come on in across the coastal areas of Mexico, possibly near the city of Veracruz. Once it starts to make its landfall approach and then move further inland, it'll begin to weaken and then weaken drastically, because between Friday night and Saturday night, we see a drop from 85 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour as it runs into those mountainous terrains across central Mexico near Mexico City. So definitely this system will not be long for this world as it starts to interact with Mexico and start to fade away. But all the while, you're still going to be dealing with the potential of flooding concerns from all the torrential rains getting wrung out up across the mountainous areas of Mexico, as well as the rough surf, the choppy wave activity, and a lot of those touristy areas, those coastal communities will be impacted by a very powerful system coming on. And even though it's a Category 1, it can still leave a lasting impact for weeks, if not months, and sometimes even years, depending upon the situation at hand. Tropical Storm Andre has winds of 70 miles per hour, so it's on the verge of becoming a hurricane, and it's just one knocked below, I should say, from seeing the chance for becoming a hurricane, as it's going to go up to 75 miles per hour to make it a hurricane in the next interval. But as we watch it make its way westward at 10 miles per hour, it'll start to curve up in towards a northeasterly direction, heading almost due north, strengthening as it makes its way up along just parallel to the eastern seaboard. It's going to become a hurricane potentially by the time we get towards Saturday morning, with wind speeds sustained relatively around 85 miles per hour. And then as we make our way from Saturday into Sunday, you can see right there it's getting pretty close to the northeast. And as we zoom on in on that cone right here, I should say, you're going to be watching it possibly maybe making a slight jog to the left before getting dragged up across to the north and east and then out to sea. So we'll watch this system possibly making a landfalling approach up across sections of eastern New England, up near Cape Cod, Rhode Island, up near Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, or it can also go completely past those islands right there and across the eastern seaboard and get chucked right out to sea. So that's where this forecast cone of uncertainty kind of just broadens itself out, because there's still so many variables that we have to take into effect with where Henri will go. But nonetheless, a lot of people up across the northeast, I got friends and family over that way up in the New York City area, watching this forecast, I'm sure, very carefully where we can possibly deal with the system that may impact those areas. And it was back in 1985 we had the same name storm, Tropical Storm Henri, make its approach up across this region, hitting the eastern portions of Long Island and then in towards the Connecticut, Rhode Island area. So history may try and repeat itself, or at least get a lot of people's nerves kind of on a fray, because we have to deal with potentially a tropical system or hurricane coming up that way. So what's steering these systems making their way throughout their tropical journeys? Well, we have this big ridge of high pressure as we're looking at the geopotential height at around 500 millibars, around 18,000 feet or so. And this big area of high pressure is helping to steer Grace down across the southern end of the Gulf of Mexico. If this high pressure system was a little bit further to the east, it will get the chance for possibly pulling up Grace up across sections of the northwest Gulf of Mexico, so possibly impacting Texas, or up across the lower Mississippi River Valley area. So thankfully for us, we have this high pressure in place. Unfortunately, these tropical systems have to go somewhere, and sadly, it's going up across populated areas of Mexico. But as we put this graphic into motion, you can see right there that we have not one, but two areas of high pressure on the move. We have this area of high pressure located near Bermuda, typically called the Bermuda High, and we're going to be watching it getting the chance for trying to pull Henri up across towards portions of the northeast and then out to sea. We have this high pressure system still keeping Grace down to the south, and that's where we're going to be watching Grace eventually make that landfall. But we were watching this very carefully for Wednesday afternoon, the whole dynamics going on in the upper portions of the atmosphere, because what we got going on is there's a big trough, big upper low pressure system moving on across portions of Greenland that's acting like a traffic stop right there. Things can't go past it. They have to go down and around it. So we have this ridge of high pressure trying to build on up and kind of back in up across sections of the northeast. So originally we did see Henri making its way northward and then starting to make a nice left jog in towards sections of the northeast. But we are now starting to watch this Bermuda high pressure system starting to take more of a firmer hold, and that upper area of low pressure starting to get nudged out of the way. The traffic jam is starting to let loose a little bit. So what that's going to allow, if this situation continues to unfold the way it's projected, we could be seeing this Bermuda High really take over and just pull Henri up towards the northeast, but not having him make a landfall, just a glancing blow, maybe some rough wave activity, and also some breezy winds, maybe a few rain bands or some scattered showers at best. But hopefully it gets pulled out to sea and doesn't impact anyone from the Canadian Maritimes over across sections of the northeast. So we'll keep our hopes that that will continue to be the case, and of course continue to watch all the computer data coming on in. Now, as this high pressure right here sitting up across the central to southern plains continues to slowly track westward, keeping Grace down to the south, it's a big ridge of high pressure. It's like a dome, and like we've heard before numerous times, you're getting that heat dome effect going on, which storms can't go through it. Nothing really develops underneath it. Instead, the sun just kind of shines down and just kind of bakes the area, which means for us here in Houston, our high temperatures are going to go up as we go into portions of the end of the weekend and into next week. Talking upper 90s, maybe even getting our first 100-degree reading of the year But we know the field eye temperatures, of course, will be higher than that. Now, as we check out Omri right here, me and meteorologist Tim Pandagis and chief meteorologist David Paul were watching all these spaghetti plots right there, and we saw that little northwesterly kind of jog coming in with Omri. Now, as we look at the latest model trend, looking at the spaghetti plots right here, all the various computer models, including the American model, the GFS, we can watch that system start to make a slight push towards the east. We're starting to get those model trends to see not so many of them favoring a northeasterly landfall, but maybe just a glancing blow and getting pushed out towards the east. But you can see by this morning, we still have a lot of discrepancies right there. All the computer models not getting on the same page. They're all kind of like arguing with each other, so to speak, in terms of where Omri will go. I mean, one has it going just straight out to sea, and one has it going right in towards, say, Delaware into southern New Jersey. So that's a big difference right there with the computer models. But that's where we talk about over time, you can't just lock it into one forecast. New computer data, I should say, comes in all the time, and that's where we get the latest forecast models coming on in, as well as the latest official track coming on in from the National Hurricane Center. But nonetheless, all eyes will be on Omri once we start to see that system making its way up and towards portions of the Northeast. And as we go forward over the next several weeks, we're going to be getting towards that peak of the season, which is mid-September. And then afterwards, we start to see conditions starting to become unfavorable for tropical development. We get less tropical waves coming in off the African continent, with just a little bit of an uptick right there in towards the middle of October. Those tropical systems usually develop a little bit closer to home. The Western Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and right off the eastern seaboard. But then by the time we get past Halloween and in towards November, that's when thankfully that tropical activity really starts to subside, and we don't really have to worry about any systems developing and threatening any portions of the U.S. mainland, as well as up across the Atlantic Basin areas. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out on social media to any of the meteorologists here at KHOU, including myself right here. I got my social handles on Twitter, on Instagram, as well as my Facebook page as well. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions about this video or just weather questions in general. We are always happy to help out and give you the latest information that we have at hand. Have a great rest of your day.